Okay, we have tutorial number 2, and the first thing I'm going to go over is the difference between wet brushing and dry brushing. And to show that, I'm going to bust out this tube of wet paint, which is not necessarily this brand, but wet paint is the best kind of watercolors to use as opposed to like one of those trays. If you were to try to dry brush with one of the trays as opposed to this, it would almost be kind of impossible because that paint's already dry. There's 2 ways to dry brush, and one of them is with a completely dry brush, and this one's dry. And you would basically just stick it straight in that paint, and then you would go and you would mark on your paper. And as you can see, my camera's not focusing, but it creates, it's mostly made for like detail and stuff like that, so I wouldn't recommend using that at all right now. Maybe not even ever. And then there's another kind of dry brush where, and I forgot to mention in the materials section, where I always have a paper towel right next to me, and I use it a lot. It's kind of almost instinctual, but I'll get my brush wet and kind of get a lot of the water out, and then I'll get even more of the water out on my paper towel, and then I'll go back, and this is dry brushing, remember, and I'll very slightly touch it to that paint, and when I paint it on there, it kind of creates like very rigid lines and very good for detail. Maybe not necessarily with this brush. It would be better to use with this brush if you're painting hairs or something, but once again, I wouldn't recommend that kind of painting, right, like for beginning stages. The second kind is different kind of washes, wet brushing. So the first I'm going to show you, I have this painting here as an example for once I show you with this quick little thing. So the first one is going to be a completely pre-water wash thing, and this is what I was kind of talking about to you before, is I take water and put it on my brush, maybe get a little bit of out of there on the paper towel, and I'll just get this whole thing wet with just water, nothing else. And also, I certainly wouldn't recommend when you like draw your stuff beforehand that you draw it that dark. So I have some water in my brush. I'm going to get this wet just a little bit. I don't need very much. A little bit goes a long way. And I'll show you what happens when I have that water in there already. So when I put that water in there, I kind of kept it constrained to the outsides of that triangle there. And now I'm just kind of dipping my brush in and letting the water just kind of flows within the lines I put water in. So wherever it's dry, wherever I didn't put water, the paint is not going to go. So that's really handy in painting, because you want that hard edge sometimes, and that water really helps keep it constrained. Another thing you can do is so we're going to start over and go with this circle right here, is you can go and get your brush wet and then put a little paint in it. And this time we are not pre-wetting the paper, so you'll see the difference. And I think I have a little bit more paint in here this time, but do you see how it's kind of only going where I want it to go, where I paint it with the brush, and there's that hard edge in there, and you can see that. And then if you want to soften that edge, you can, and this is just water on my brush now, I'm taking that doing that with the brush. So in this painting here, you can see, I'll point out the differences between the hard and soft edges. So this is a hard edge where I used paint and water mixed in my brush all at once and just painted it straight on there. And for this piece, I actually wanted that hard edge in that location. But like over here where things, you know, are kind of shading, I didn't want that hard edge. So I actually pre-painted that with water and mixed my paints as I go along. And that is, you know, a pretty basic demonstration of the washes and dry brushes. I hope it helps.